here in January with the big world's largest collector car auction here at Osceola's Heritage Park. Lots of new changes this year. I was here yesterday scouting the cars out, showing you guys what you're going to see today. This is a really massive auction, 4,500 cars. Of course, not all of them are here at once, but if you come the first weekend, majority of them are here. So I'm going to show you around the campus here, show you the new things, show you some low mileage cars, some main attraction cars, movie cars, stuff like that, and preview kind of like what's going to cross the block next week as well. So stay tuned and I'll show you around. So let's get started. Okay, here's first of the many changes that happened this year. This used to be pre-staging. This area used to be pre-staging for the auction. Now that pre-staging area has moved behind the regular staging area on this side, behind the Osceola's Heritage Park Silver Spurs Arena on this side, behind the building. There's more cars behind that as well, because this area over here was used last year, that open field, but they had many issues with mud because of all the rain they had last year, so they moved all those cars that were usually over here behind the Silver Spurs Arena, which is a massive area. So you have plenty of cars back here this year, and pre-staging is way back here this year as well. So this is another glass house. This isn't the main glass house, but this is another glass house they have this year at MECUM Kissimmee. So we're going to start off here and check out the awesome cars inside this area. And we're starting things off with a bang here, 1969 Lamborghini Miura. First one I've ever seen in person. The only car that looks great with eyelashes, whatever they call them. But this is a great example of one. There's two of them here in this year's auction. And here is some of the information on that car. Estimated to go across around over $2 million. This is a, many consider this, which I think it is, the first mid-engine two-seater sports, like the first mid-engine two-seater sports car, which many consider the first exotic supercar today. So this is a fine example of that. I love these cars. Really cool to see one in person, which I've seen countless of pictures and videos of these cars, and it's really a treat to see this in person. I love the color on this. I don't know what the color name is. Of course, it has the Bertone design insignia right here on the pillar. Look at the gated shifter inside. Really nice. And of course, the other Miura that's in this auction is the same exact color as well, which is like a few cars down to the left. So I'll show you that as well. So Lamborghini Miura at MECUM Auctions, that's going across the block, I think next Saturday. This is something pretty wild you don't see that's out in the open like this. Usually it's behind like velvet roast. 1936 Delahaye. These are like French built cars before like pre-war era cars before World War II. So Type 135 competition court teardrop coupe. These are just hand-built two-seater sports cars here from the French. Very meticulous detailed cars. Here is your turn signals right here, like you will have on the early Volkswagen. They kind of fold out. I love the teardrop styling, kind of like an Art Deco style from like the 30s and stuff. Love that. Of course, you had what they're famous for is the spine that runs down the center of these cars, which later got carried on to the Corvette, which kind of their idea came from that as well. But I love these cars. These are very, probably one of my favorite cars from the 1930s era is the Delahaye's. Teardrop styling, just that swoop back look to it. Love it. And I'm pretty sure this is going across the block next Saturday as well. Look at the details in the side here. Look at the dash, real wood, engine turn dash, real wood here on the doors and on the dash as well. Love the seat. There's your spare tire in the back. Very well done, preserved, restored Delahaye. It's going across the block next Saturday. Up close to that grill. This is probably the closest I'll ever get to another Delahaye, so I'm going to take the most advantage as possible. But yeah, great example of a 1936 Delahaye here at MECUM. And here is the other Lamborghini Miura at this auction, 1970. The other one was a 69. And of course, same color interior, same. Of course, with the gated shifter, same exterior paint. I just love the looks of these cars. Of course, on these cars, they're known to get real light in the front because that's where the gas tank is. So when you get less than half a tank and you kind of really get onto the higher speeds, it gets real light in the front and it kind of messes with your steering and handling. That was kind of like the downside of these cars. But I just love the overall look of this car. Lamborghini was really spot on with their styling in the late 60s, early 70s. I mean, who would knew the Countach would eventually replace this? This is my all-time favorite Lamborghini model right here, Lamborghini Miura. And then right next to that is a 1970 Plymouth Superbird. This is a special Superbird. This one was owned by Richard Petty from 1982 until 97, something like that. So it's a 440. Of course, with the white exterior paint. Of course, all the Superbirds had the vinyl roof, because they had the plug in the back window, because these are rushed to get out to compete in NASCAR that each season. Of course, you had the wing, the famous Superbird wing. These are adjustable as well. You usually see these flat on display, but these can be angled. So it's always a treat to see a Superbird here. And of course, there is also a Daytona here. If I find it, I'll show you. And this is a automatic car. You wouldn't think, being owned by Richard Petty, this would be an automatic, but this is a automatic 440 car. Of course, these are for letting the air out. These are not for tire clearance. There's actually a hole in here on the race car, actually. Yeah, on the race car, these had a hole right here to let air pressure out. These were not for tire clearance, as many people would kind of claim that, but that's not true. Of course, you had the nose cone with the pop-up headlights and this little strip here to kind of be characterized as a bumper. But 1970 Superbird, owned by Richard Petty, here at MECUM 2025. All right, this is probably the third or fourth year I've seen this car at this auction. This is the customized four-door Barracuda. It's very cool. They actually modified a sedan, turned it into modified a Barracuda coupe, turned it into a sedan, and they actually printed up a sticker here if it was produced back in the day. Actually made a vinyl roof for it, I guess to hide the surgery scars, but did an awesome job, executed this well. Of course, 4 doors, which never existed back in 1970. But it's really well done and executed. I mean, this is the only one in the world that is a 4-door Cuda. So just kind of soak that in. It's a big what if. But somebody made it, and here it is. I always loved this body-style Cuda, and of course, if they made a 4-door, this is what it would look like. What I would love to see somebody take this one step further and do a Cuda wagon. Put it like a 440 in it or something like that. Make it real crazy. So whoever did this, make a 4-door wagon version. That'd be awesome. I would love to see that. Of course, this only has a 340 with a 4-barrel. But again, pretty awesome. There's more stuff like this later, so stay tuned. Okay, this is pretty special in the Mopar world. This is the AA car, Dan Gurney AAR Cuda. Of course, these all had 340s in them. These were to be, they made a special number of them to be homologated for SCCA Trans Am racing. I think all these use like the high impact colors. The most famous ones you see are like the green with the black stripes. I forget the Plymouth version of that, but I think it was like Sassy Grass, but I could be wrong. I'm sure, just leave them in the comments what the color was. But the most famous of these color combinations is the green and black. I do like the red as well. But this is a very well executed, restored AAR Cuda. Of course, you had the slacks on the back window. Nice black interior. I think the ones I've seen have always been black interior. Very well executed dash. Of course, you have the wood grain inserts on the dash there. Black vinyl seats. Nice vinyl roof as well. Love these. And of course, from the same class in 1970 is a Chevelle SS 454. Sure if there's it's not saying, but I don't think this is a LS6 Chevelle. Of course, the LS6 would be like the top, the M22 transmission, all that rock crusher transmission. But this is a automatic car. It's not a 4-speed car. But if I was to order a Chevelle back in 1970, it would definitely be like this, black with the white stripes. Mostly due to that, because the movie Dazed and Confused, Matthew McConaughey drove one of these in that movie. And I just fell in love with these 70 Chevelles ever since. And I just love the styling. I love the looks of the cars. It's just a all-around great looking car. I mean, coming from a Mopar guy, it's kind of hard to choose between one or the other. If this was a Hemi Cuda or a big block 454 Chevelle, it's kind of hard for me to decide which one I would buy if it was 1970 and I had money to buy just one. This is a hard call for me for which one to buy, but I might go for the Cuda instead, but it's kind of hard. That's a hard decision right there between those two. But if I only had to buy two cars, it'd be these two right here. Here's a very nice Power Wagon, but this kind of like tells the age of when it was kind of restored. This is not powered by like a diesel or any kind of Dodge powertrain. This is a Power Wagon that is powered by a Chevrolet LS3, even though it kind of has that retro look to it. This is a LS3. You can see the coil packs up in here. But I mean, they tried their best to cover it up to make it look vintage, but they've done really well with the interior, with the diamond stitch interior on the seats. Really nice steering wheel there as well, with the wood bed floor. But nice black paint on this truck as well. I mean, it's a really cared for Power Wagon, but I mean, I would at least put either a diesel engine or some sort of Dodge powertrain in this thing, but it is what it is. It's a very nice truck all around. Very nice Power Wagon. There's plenty of these at this auction as well. I think there's like 4 or 5 of these at this auction in many various forms. But here's another shot of the interior here. Looking all around. Very nice Dodge Power Wagon. Here's another shot of the engine. So there you go. Dodge Power Wagon at MECUM Kissimmee. Hey, here's what I was talking about, the new stuff going on this year. This is the new pre-staging area. This used to be over here last year and the years prior. The cars used to come in here and go into the staging lanes. But again, this is a new glass house they have this year. Here is pre-staging. You still walk through there and check out the cars. The cars come from here to go in here to go to the auction. That's this way in the side of the Silver Spurs Arena. So staging lanes are the same. Here's pre-staging over here, and back here, all this back here is first weekend stuff, first week cars from Tuesday to Sunday, all back here. Lots of cars back here. Don't skip this area until like later in the week where most of these cars are gone. But remember, in this video, tons of cars still back here. They go way back here as well, behind parking, as far as first week cars. So lots of new stuff here at MECUM. So when you go to pre-staging, there's a gate here by this Bronco, and just lets you in and lets you see all the first week cars that are here for the auction. So here is the first week cars. These were in the field out front. That was in the muddy field last year. So this is what those cars would have been in if it was set up last year. So lots of cool new stuff here at MECUM 2025. New tents, more cars, more enjoyment here at MECUM. So this car is raising a lot of red flags in the used stock car racing industry. This is not a Kyle Busch combo Joe Gibbs racing car. Let me show you why. So when these cars are built, they're giving a chassis number, and this is actually grinded off. This is actually a Mach Ultra Racing chassis, and somebody who had this before grinded it off and actually put a sticker here with the Joe Gibbs Racing chassis number on it, which is not correct. These would actually like cut into the chassis like this original one was. So this is actually Dale Jarrett's last Cup chassis that he ever raced. This was raced in the 2008 NASCAR All-Star race. This combo's setup was never raced on a road course, which they claim this is a road course setup car. This is, I think, from what I heard from Stock Car Surplus, which really uncovered what this car really was, this is actually set for intermediate stuff still. Because road courses usually have more vents in the front, more hoses for your brakes, for cooling, because you do a lot of left and right turn braking, and this car would be set up a little more for right hand turns as well. Depends on if it's going to Sonoma or Watkins Glen, or because those are only two road courses back then, back in 2008. So of course you have your nice ducting here, and there's your screen and all that. I mean your rear windscreen. There's your oil cooler. Joy of seating seat here, of course built by Randy and Corey LaJoy. Brandon Joy, two-time Busch Series champion, and Corey LaJoy racing the Cup Series recently, but don't know of 2025 plans as of yet. There's your dash right here, and of course your ignition boxes here. Of course, later years they had mandated ignition boxes because of teams would complain of traction control, so that's why they're up here. But it's a pretty nice COT car, but not represented as it should be. Of course, the earlier years of the COT car had the wing. These were not effective on really short tracks, so they're kind of just there for appearance, which which teams kind of complain that these are not really useful for short tracks and like smaller intermediate tracks, but 1.5 mile tracks and up, these are effective. But they kind of went away from that and went to the traditional like blade spoiler that they have in the rear. But I mean, it's kind of like a buyer beware when you buy these cars, and from people that are trying to make it more than it actually is. I mean, if they went with the Dale Jarrett stuff as it should be originally represented, you could have probably got more money than what it brought. But here it is. Here's the description that they represent on the car. But just be careful what you buy, and do your research and look at them in person. Don't just buy them off the internet. I would never buy a car sight unseen, especially if I was gonna race it on the weekends and stuff like that. So just be careful when you buy these cars from major auctions, because just be careful what's out there. Now, I can't tell you last time I saw one of these. This is a Dodge Daytona IROC edition. Of course, they raced these in IROC in the early 90s. This is a 2.5 liter turbo Dodge Daytona. This only has 3,400 original miles on it. That's it. And this is a total original car. This is the Shelby Daytona. This is awesome. Look at the interior. So the bid goes on for $20,000. See, again, here is the actual miles on the car here. Look at this. Original everything. This is crazy. Let's see if it's unlocked. Look at the interior. It has that tweed interior that you saw in the early 90s. Look at this. This is a manual car as well. It's a 5-speed. I mean, it just smells 90s still in here. This is crazy. It's probably some guy had it, or some lady had it, and they stored it away, kept care of it. Shelby Daytona. Look at the slacks on the window. They're not like faded or rusted away or anything like that. They're very well taken care of. This is definitely a garage kept car. Wow. What a treat. I don't see any like cracks in the bumpers. Like, there's no cracks down here. This is just a well taken care of car. A Shelby Daytona that's in really nice shape. This is really, let me show this. Another shot of the interior here. Nice tweed. Again, here is your original books down here, owner's manual, everything. There's your better shot of your shifter here. Wow. I remember those ignitions that they would light up, the key would light up green when you turn the power on. Wow, that's awesome. Look at the back seat. This back seat's probably like never been sit in probably. This is a gorgeous Shelby Daytona. Of course, obviously, if you're car racing IROC, you would have a IROC series badging on your car, of course, like you did with the Camaros. Daytona didn't really have a long life. Dodge didn't really have a long life in IROC, but it's a relic from that past. So, this is very cool setup here. Who knows? This might be the lowest mileage Daytona out there, but really cool. It's really cool what you see here at MECUM, especially cars you probably never seen in a really long time. This is one of those Shelby Daytonas here at MECUM. Alright, it's talking about weird and crazy cars you find here at MECUM. This is a 1976 Vanguard Citicar. These are built between 1974 to 1977, right in the middle of the energy crisis in the mid-70s. Of course, these cars would later be prominent in that. But here's what the kind of like the American side would do to combat that. This was, you know, they had six 6-volt batteries in here. This is all electric, GE electric, and this is just not very attractive at all. You do have some, like, has that Cybertruck look to it. You've got that little trapezoid thing going on here. It's just like it is a city car. It's only for short distances, going around town, but it's not very attractive or something that will really attract many buyers. I mean, they only made, you know, they only made it between 74 to 77, and then by the time these started coming in, these Hondas, you'd rather have one of these than one of these. So I don't blame them of going out of style, because of the JDM imports were coming in saving the day during the energy crisis, when you still had, you know, full-size Chevelles and Cutlasses and things like that, drinking your gas and paying like over $1 a gallon for gas back in the mid-70s. So there is Vanguard Citicar at MECUM. Tell me when was the last time you saw one of these? A 1986 AMC Eagle. This only has 51,000 original miles on it. Of course, these are all 4-wheel drive wagons. These are really big in like the New England area. I imagine wherever you got snow, you saw one of these in the mid 80s to early 90s. I can't tell you the last time I saw one of these, especially on the road outside of the auction area. So this is really a treat to see one of these in person. Of course, you have the nice brown leather interior to match the exterior. This one sold yesterday, but it's, again, really well maintained, probably garage kept, because a lot of these you saw rusted out because people use these as their winter cars, especially up north. But man, this is a really nice example of a AMC Eagle. And of course, you bought these later years. You bought these at your Dodge dealer when Dodge bought out AMC. But this is like, wow, this is a really nice example of an AMC Eagle. And of course, obviously clean Carfax and all that stuff. So very solid Eagle here at MECUM. Of course, next to that, these are what Dodge Chargers looked like before they went away in the mid 70s, and this only has 29,000 original miles on it. This is I think it's a 1975 Dodge Daytona. This is a rare example of a Dodge Daytona. I think it's the last year of the Dodge Daytonas until they came back into production in the late 2000s, early 2010s. So this is what became of the Dodge. You know, you think of a Dodge, you think of like 440 Chargers and Hemis, and this is what became of the Dodge craze until it ended. This came like big luxury cars with like not a lot of power because of the energy crisis again. And this actually has a sunroof on it. So, check inside here. I think it's unlocked, but here's what the inside of a 75 Charger looks like. You know, typical 70s car has that plush interior with that blue vinyl dash and door panels. I mean, it's not a lot of muscle here. All that times are long gone by this point, but this still has a 360 in it. I would imagine probably not even hitting 200 horsepower to haul this big boat around. But this is what became of the Charger once the energy crisis took over, unfortunately. The muscle is long gone, and now it became as the luxury styling car from the mid-70s. So that happened to a lot of muscle cars, but it came back strong in the early to mid 2010s and early 2020s. So it will be again once we go over this electric craze. So that is what Charger was. 1975 Dodge Charger Daytona. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. GMC Typhoon. Of course, you had the Cyclone, which was the truck version. You rarely see these in white. You usually see these in like black. Was the most common color of these. Of course, this is one of 200 produced, and one of 2200 produced in 93, and one of 532 in frost white. Of course, you had the black interior. I love these Typhoons. Of course, these were all-wheel drive, turbo. These engines were based off the 3.8 liters that were in the Grand Nationals, but these are all-wheel drive. Very nice set. These are also had two-tone versions. You rarely see those as well, but frost white, probably maybe a handful of these I've ever seen. See the interior here for something. No, yeah, something locked. Here's a better shot of the interior. Very nice. Automatic. All these were automatic. There it is, 1993 GMC Typhoon. Okay, this is something you don't expect to see sitting in a field at MECUM, but again, buyer beware, because they're just post what they've been told by the previous owner. This is allegedly the pole-winning car from the 1998 Indy 500 driven by Billy Boat. Of course, back in 1998, this had the dark green, light green Casico colors, not the ABC supply company that AJ Foyt most recently dealt with for sponsorship. But this was like a couple of years into the Indy Racing League taking over the most of the IndyCar series. You still had the split between kart and IRL for open wheel racing in America at the time. But I mean, this is the AJ Foyt Enterprises car, supposedly, and also this is the same chassis that Billy Boat won at Texas with in '98. But again, you have to have more documentation than just what the marquee thing would say. So again, just be careful when you buy these cars from auctions, and do your research before you purchase these. But here it is, IndyCar in the middle of a sand field here at MECUM Kissimmee, allegedly pole winner of the Indy 500 in 1998. Okay, here's something you don't see a lot of. This is a 1957 Chevrolet Cameo. They only made 10,000 of these trucks between 1955 to 1958. What was special about these trucks? These were actually the very first mass-produced fleet-side truck. Because prior to trucks, there were always step sides for the beds. But here's what Chevrolet did to make this truck more appealing to car buyers. What they did, these are actually fiberglass bed sides with a steel insert for the bed, and it has a wood bed floor and all that. And it kind of kept the styling of what would like the Bel Air be at that time period, with the chrome work and everything. And just to make the truck more flush to the cab side, so they made it fleet side to be more stylish to compare to like what would be like a 55 Chevy at this time period. So 1957 Chevrolet Cameo. I always love these trucks. Mostly you see these in like white with the red stripe on the side, but this is a very classy truck for the time. More of a upscale luxury truck, if you would say. These are not meant for like doing like farm work and stuff like that. Those are more for like step side and like heavier duty trucks. for the time period, but here it is, kind of like the first luxury truck that was mass produced. Kind of had more of a styling trend to it at the time. 1957 Chevrolet Cameo. And also, I love this black 55 Chevrolet Bel Air. All black, black wheels, red interior. Very sharp car. So kind of like, see what GM styling was like in the 50s. Where everybody was basically having like a new body style every year. But you see like where the GM styling was between the Cameo and the Bel Air. They're very similar, especially around the headlights. The grill work. A 55 Cameo would have more like this kind of style of a grill, but a little more space. They weren't as tight as the dividers in the grill were a little more separate in the Cameo than it was in the Bel Air, but very similar styling in both of these. See a lot of characteristics between the two, but that's what GM was great for in the 1950s, having great styling. So see two perfect examples of that right here. Here we go. This is probably one of the more G bodies you don't see commonly. You see like the Monte Carlos and the Grand Nationals, but here is the 86 Pontiac Grand Prix Aero Coupe 2+2. So these were like homologated for NASCAR, just like the wing cars in the 70s. You see these on the Monte Carlos. The Buicks did not have this, but just the Pontiacs and the Chevrolets had the Aero Coupe feature, and that really helped out. You see, most common of these, you see these on like the Monte Carlos, like the Super Sports, and mostly helped out like Dale Earnhardt, and Richard Petty actually had the Pontiac version of this. So this is the Aero Coupe, and this car is signed by Richard Petty as well. But this, see how the airflow would come over the roof here and hit that wing and give it some much needed downforce during high speeds. Very nice feature, because the original back window would go straight down like this. It would follow that curvature right there. But there you go. Pontiac Aero Coupe here at MECUM. Okay, this year at MECUM we do have all three generations of Ford GTs again. Of course, this is like the 06, 07. Of course, there is the newer Ford GT that came out a couple years ago, like 2016 through 2018, which they continued through 2020. And also, this year, the room, or at least this weekend, the room is open to the public. This was the same room last year that had the 8-figure Ferraris in, and you had to have like a gold pass or a bidder's pass to go in here. But this year, it is open to the public, or at least they may close this to the public next week when there's a lot more people here. So here is the very first Ford GT production car for the road, which is very cool because they didn't make very many of these, and the very first one was delivered. When it was delivered, Jackie Stewart was there to hand over the keys to the owner. So this is very cool to see one of these in person, especially the very first customer road car. So over here, there's all original Ford, original Shelby Cobras. But this is a very special Shelby Cobra. This is the Dragon Snake. Of course, when these cars were built, these are for road racing only, but a few people took these off and went drag racing with them. So, especially being a light car with high horsepower, that's a great combination to do that with. So here is the original Dragon Snake Cobra. It's original, restored, but right. So there it is, Dragon Snake Cobra. I think all these cars are going across the block next Saturday, so we'll be here for that. So let's move on to the next Cobra. This is the Essex Cobra. This is the 65 SX Cobra here. This is the most winningest Cobra in road racing, especially years after these Cobras were not prominent in road racing. This car still remained on track until the early 70s and still won championships and races. So this is probably the most famous of all the Cobras, especially with the winning record and pedigree this car has. Very cool to have all these like very special Cobras in one place. Of course, Essex Wire was who made wiring harnesses for Ford. Of course, you had the knockoff wheels. Of course, when these cars were raced, these were used to jack the car up in the front. There was like a jack that came up in here and jacked the front end up, so you can change the tires in the front and lower the jack. Same way for the rear as well. There's no jack point like you see now in like NASCAR where you jack it from the side. They're jacked from the front and rear to change the front tires and rear tires. So let's move on to the next Cobra. And this is a Shelby 289 Roadster. These were kind of what they looked like when they first started doing Cobras, before they put 427s in them. They're a little more resembling of the AC Bristol, in which these are a little more styling towards the British. Well, these were kind of like competing with the British cars, and this was a British car with the American drivetrain in them from Shelby. But this more characterized what they originally were as the AC Bristol, but with a Ford 289 in them. And these were very potent on the track, even with those small block Fords in them. And they're still pretty quick. Don't let that fool you. I love the blue color on this car. I don't know what the name of the color is. That's what the comments are for, but it looks gorgeous in this shade of blue, especially in these lights. Very nice. Of course, I think one of the differences between the competition car and the road car, the competition car did not have a glove box. The road car did, but not the competition race coupes. But I love this whole combination of the car. Just by the looks period, this is probably the best looking of the lot here of these Cobras, is this blue 289 Cobra. So this is the only Mustang in this room. 1965 GT 350. This is a very nice looking Mustang here, GT 350. Of course, Mustang came out a year earlier, 64 and a half, like May of 64. April, May of 64 when these Mustangs came out, and here we are like probably 6 months later, these started, the fastbacks and the race car version were started being built and being raced along tracks across the U.S. and Shelby was a part of that. So let's move over here to the Shelby 289 Cobra Roadster. This is a numbers matching car and drivetrain. This has a really nice shade of silver blue on it. Red interior. Most of these are black interior, but I don't think I ever saw one with a red interior on a Cobra, especially a original Cobra. This is probably the only time the whole year I ever see like real Cobras. Usually you see like the kit cars and the recreations, but it's always a treat to see a real Cobra in person, especially when you have a handful here at the auction. But very nice here. 64 Shelby Cobra Roadster. Okay, here's another car you'd probably never see anywhere else, only at MECUM. 1930 Ruxton Model C Roadster. This is the very first production, mass-produced front-wheel drive car ever with a Ruxton. You know, kind of Cord gets that kind of identity, but really it's a Ruxton that came before the Cord. So front-wheel drive in 1930, and these cars sold for $3,000 in 1930, which is 4 times what a Ford or a Chevy would go for in that time period. And this is 1930, middle of the Great Depression, these cars sold. And this is only one of 7 that currently exists, and this is the only one in this dark blue, light blue color. And just look how, again, this was high class in 1930. And these cars sit a lot lower because you don't have a drivetrain being front-wheel drive. They sit a lot lower, and they probably handle a lot better. Of course, you have the rumble seat in the back, or you call that the mother-in-law seat. But very classy-looking car from the 1930s, in the middle of the Great Depression. So I wouldn't imagine they sold a lot of them during the time period unless you already have money on you. So here's kind of the specs on the car and what they're kind of waiting for it to go for. I think it's probably going to be more towards the $1 million range. because you're going to have a lot of people going towards this car because of its desirability and rarity, especially being the only one in this color, this type, everything like that. These special Ruxton headlights, very characteristic of the brand. Very nice example, and one of 7 ever currently on the road right now. So this is the car of the auction. This is like the centerpiece of the auction, the 1970 Porsche 917K Steve McQueen Le Mans movie hero car. This is the car that Steve McQueen drove in the movie Le Mans, and this is actually raced used car as well. This, after the movie wrapped up, they actually still compete with this car afterwards, and it has a great historically long history. We'll see more of this car next week when I'll be here Saturday when this car crosses the block. This is probably, depending on the generation you grew up in, this is probably the most famous race car ever right here. 1970 Porsche 917 Le Mans hero car, driven by Steve McQueen. It's really a great movie. There's a great documentary about the movie and Steve McQueen making the movie Le Mans. I think it's on either Prime or Netflix. Give that a watch and also give the main movie a watch. They're both great films, so check it out. We'll see again more of this car next week. All right, it's not a MECUM auction without one of these 1955 Mercedes 300 SL Gullwing. There's actually 2 in this auction. This is the only green 300 SL to known to exist, and the other car in this auction is a silver 300 SL Gullwing. But look at the interior, the nice tan interior with the green, really works well together. Does not have the usual designer luggage in the back, but I just love this interior on this car. Of course, you have the green dash that complements the paint. Great, well done Mercedes 300 SL Gullwing. I just love the contrast between the tan and the green, and being the Gullwing just tops it off. And of course, you gotta have the matching convertible right next to it. You gotta have a convertible right next to it. So there is a Mercedes 300 SL going across the block, I think Saturday, next Saturday, here at MECUM. So only green 300 SL. Especially here at MECUM, there's only it's probably like the biggest vintage Indy car collection outside of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum, and it's here at MECUM. We'll cover these cars more next week because that's when they're going to hit the block. But cars from like Mario Andretti, Al Unser, AJ Foyt, the Roger Ward, legendary drivers from that legendary time period between like the 50s all the way up through the 70s, all here at MECUM, going across the block, part of one private collection that is being pieced out. And over here is a Janet Guthrie Texaco Star car right here. So
that makes sense. Very
cool to see these legendary cars out in the open. You get right up close to them and not behind like a rope or a stanchion. You get right up close to them, take a picture and enjoy them. And of course, you have all these fuel tanks back here as well that are being sold separately. Very cool. I have a nice collection. So probably one of the cool things about MECUM, you see a lot of things you wouldn't expect to see up close. So a lot of vintage Indy cars hitting the block next week here at MECUM. Okay, a lot of people think the GTO is like the first like muscle car, but if you're a Mopar fan, you know your history, you know what was actually first. These cars back in 62, 63, and 64 had like these max wedge motors in them. This is when they had the 426 max wedge cars. You had the Belvedere and you had the Dodge Cornet. This is the Belvedere. This has the 426 in it, and this is actually a push button car. What I mean by that, over here is your shifter. So this is your left, here's your park, neutral, reverse, drive, first, second gear right here. And there's where you park it, you slam that, you release that out of the park, then you press what gear you select. Neutral, drive, reverse, first, second gear right here, all on the left side of your dash. There's no shifter on the column, there's no shifter on the floor. Very nice, well preserved, restored 64 Plymouth Belvedere max wedge is actually a max wedge car. It's not made into a max wedge. This was originally a max wedge car. So I think going across the block Saturday, Friday or Saturday next week. It's just, I love these cars. They're very, people think they're like taxi cabs out, like sort of body taxi cabs from the outside. But when you pop that hood, there's that max wedge staring in your face, ready to be a sleeper. It's a nice sleeper look to it with the dog ditch hubcaps on it. Not too flashy on the outside, but all motor on the inside. 426 max wedge with two 4-barrel carburetors with the cross ram intake. Nice early 60s horsepower right here. So that's what Mopar was doing to contribute to the performance game in the early 60s right here. Here's some you may recognize. This is the 1967 Jaguar E-Type, but this was the Shagwire from the first 3 Austin Power movies. This was some used form or fashion notes, all 3 of those movies. I think this is more prominent in the first one. I haven't seen the Austin Power movies in a while, but I do remember this car from the movie. This is the hero car. Because in movies you used a couple different cars from a couple different scenes. But this was the hero car. Of course, there's Jaguar here on the plate.
Jaguar Land Rover,
Jaguar.
I would loan them the car, and in turn they would...
And here is the interior of the Jaguar. It's basically like a stock E-Type Jag. But this is the actual movie car that was used in Austin Powers, the Jaguar. This Nomad is a pretty interesting story. This is a 1957 Chevrolet Nomad prototype. And what I mean by prototype, this was probably one of the first cars that GM ever made with a fuel injection system. Not this one, but back here in the back. This is the second ever vacuum fuel injection system GM ever made right here. And this was on this car. And this was displayed at the auto shows in 1957 with that fuel injection system on it. So, and it also has like very special like fabric on the seat that you never saw anywhere else, like these inserts here. That was just a one-off option on this car when it went to display shows. But this is the like you see like the Detroit Auto Show, LA Auto Show. This was the display car in 1957 with that fuel injection system on it. So very historical piece here at MECUM. The very first second 1957 Chevrolet with the fuel injection system on it. So here is a pretty accurate replica of the Back to the Future DeLorean. This is from the movie, pretty accurate representation of the Part 2 version. So here it is. It still has all the wiring as it was on the outside in the movie. Here's the interior. Of course, here's that famous flux capacitor in the back here. And there's your dates, where you're going, where you were, here's all your dates right here. There's your keypad to key in your dates. Here's how you turn everything on. It's a manual just like the one in the movie. Of course, over here is your Mr. Fusion. And of course, that giveaway is the number 2. It's a license plate. It has a more of like a barcode style license plate for at a time. But here is a pretty good representation of a replica of the Back to the Future DeLorean. Better shot of the interior. I just love these movies. It's probably like my favorite movie trilogy of all time. And when it's on TV, I have to watch it. But very well done replica of the DeLorean. Here's cool. This is a movie car from the very first Bad Boys movie. This was the Cobra that the bad guys had in the end of this chase scene where they were chasing the Porsche. The Porsche was here a couple years ago. But this is the Cobra that was in that movie, and they had 2 Cobras for that movie. This is the hero car, and they also had a car that crashed at the end of the runway. Now, I've only seen maybe 3 in my whole life, but this is a real Yenko Nova. This is not like a 427 or anything like that. This is a 350 small block, 4-speed car. Black vinyl interior. One of 10 of these that was made in this yellow color. But of course, you know, Don Yanko, the Yanko performance cars. These were like, of course, he's known for the Camaros and Chevelles, but he did make Novas, Corvairs, but mostly he's famous for the Camaros. But here is one of his, like, I think he made 175 of these Yanko Novas in 1970, and here's one of them right here. There it is with the 4-speed. Again, Yanko Deuce Novas. There's your paperwork here, 4-speed. Of course, this is one of 175. There's your 350 LT1 engine right here that you put in these cars. Very nice, attractive. I like this yellow paint on this Nova too with the black stripes. But here it is, one of 175 Yanko Novas for 1970. Now this is amazing. This is part of like Hollywood car history right here. This is the Trans Am from the movie Cannonball. Not Cannonball Run, the Burt Reynolds movie, but Cannonball, David Carradine from 1976. This is that Trans Am he used in that movie, and he actually owned the car after the movie. There's documentation to prove all this. This is all original, non-restored car from that movie. And here's a record to show. This is a Super Duty Coupe, 1974 Trans Am. It's 455. Interior's in good shape. Of course, there's your manual shifter. You see all the wear marks from the movie and from use over the years, but this is the car from the movie Cannonball from 1976. Pretty good movie. More of a serious take on the cross-country race compared to the Burt Reynolds version. More of a comedy, but this is a really good movie. I had this movie on DVD, and I have it, I don't know if they made a Blu-ray or not, but I definitely have it on Blu-ray. I mean, I have it on DVD, but pretty awesome to see this car because it plays such a prominent role in the movie. Very cool. 1974 Pontiac Super Duty Trans Am, owned by Dave Carradine, from the movie Cannonball, here at MECUM, going across the block Saturday. Can't wait to see this one go. Again, another thing you only see at MECUM. This is a movie replica car. This is a Batman, Christopher Nolan movies. This is a tumbler made off a 1995 GMC Suburban. Of course, remember it had the bat cycle in here from the Dark Knight movie, and it's just really well taken. This is a top opened up for Batman to get inside. Of course, it has the flamethrower jet rocket pack in the back. Dual wheels from the tumbler. Of course, it's like the first Batman series where Batman diverted from a car as a Batmobile to one like a military vehicle. It's what Christopher Nolan wanted to do when he created the Batman Dark Knight character for his movies. He wanted to be like a darker, kind of more of a serious Batman for Christian Bale. You can see in here your suspension of the tumbler. You can see like the small block Chevy in here as well. It's a 350 small block, but it's like propane for the flamethrower or something like that. But really cool setup here on this tumbler. Here is your description here. Chevrolet Batmobile tumbler. But really well executed tumbler. It's pretty cool. I've never seen one of these up close, but again, it gives you perspective on how big the tumbler is. Now tell me, when was the last time you saw one of these? 1987 Chevrolet Chevette. These cars were everywhere in the late 80s and 90s, and now I can't tell you the last time I saw them. It's probably been 15-20 years. But this car only has 47 original miles on it. It's well documented. It's just a bare bones Chevette that's probably was put away in a museum or somebody's collection, never driven. But everything is like brand new, mint inside. This car is unlocked. I think it's going across the block on Wednesday. Manual car as well, 4-speed. Just bare bones car. I mean, nothing too crazy in here. Everything's original stock. Seats, everything. 47-mile Chevrolet Chevette, no rust. I can see these are bad for rusting out because they didn't use like the best quality material to build these things. They want to keep them cheap as possible. Hatchback version, this whole thing lifted up. It's easy access for the rear to put your storage and groceries in. But a 47-mile Chevette, I mean, it's probably the lowest mileage Chevette that exists. I don't even think, probably maybe GM would have one in their collection somewhere, but this is a crazy, you never see this. A 47-mile Chevrolet Chevette, I think going across the block next week around Wednesday, Thursday, here at MECUM. Here's something too that's getting ready to be eligible now to be imported in the U.S. These Toyota Centuries. This is the first generation Century. This is a 4-liter V8, and over here is a second generation Toyota Century. This is a left-hand drive Toyota Century. This has the 5-liter V12 engine in it. If you know S-Spot on YouTube, he has a Toyota Century with a special exhaust kit on it, and it sounds like a Formula One car from like the early 2000s with that V12 engine in it. These were built by Toyota in the late 90s for officials and government officials and high executives. These are mostly just for like Japanese government officials. Mostly bought these cars, and these were built to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Toyota. So Generation 2 and Generation 1 Toyota Centuries. So here are some of the cars getting detailed before they hit the auction block. You see they have their own detail area here. 303 Detailing Zone, which is the official detailer of MECUM Auctions. So they're just getting this Corvette ready before it hits the block. So I'm going to end it off here, and I'm going to end it out with some Dodge Thrill-Wide videos. So just hit the bell and subscribe, and we'll see you next weekend for the main attraction cars when they hit the block here at MECUM Kissimmee. So have a good time, everyone.